Hello and welcome to consoletraining.com's video on 30 minutes to show on grandMA2. There are a lot of fantastic training resources that have come out for both grandMA from us and also from other people such as Christian Jackson on getting the best out of your grandMA console, and he's shown these amazing layout views with buttons and variables and effects, and that's fantastic for people that operate mainly in one venue or are only using a grandMA2 console. I'd love to build something like that, and I got halfway through building one and realised that if I was going to build one for that, then I'd have to build one that does the same thing on a Clarity, on an HOG, and even on a Clarity LSC console. And the reason is, week by week, I'm operating on very different shows, on very different consoles, and unless I can do something that's consistent throughout all the desks, then there's no real value in me making, an MA2 look really good. Yes, of course, if I'm speccing a show myself and I've got a choice, I can grab an MA2, and if I've got some time, I can set up, obviously, the console in the way that I want it, maybe with one of these layout views if I'm busking a show. But for most of the time, the stuff I do is mainly corporate, and I'll get given MA1s, Clarity, the list goes on of all consoles. I've even been given, weird ones like Light Factory and stuff occasionally, and I've had to sort of simplify the way that I do shows so that I can make them look consistent across them and still make them look obviously good enough for the performance. So we'll jump in. I've got a little on PC set up in front of me, and I'm going to go through pretty much what I'd do walking into a room if I hadn't set up the show myself. So we can see that we've got a bunch of groups already loaded. One of the benefits of being on an MA2 is I can load my own user profile. So I go user profile setup, and I've already loaded my profile. I click login, and it's going to give me what I would call a familiar look for me. So I've got a bunch of empty palettes, and I'm pretty much ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the rig into highlight, and I'm going to check that I've got everything. And when it starts becoming a bit hard to see because I've got a lot of stuff up, I might also drop it into solo and just start highlighting through again. And this isn't one of my show files, by the way. This is one off the MA3D Stages website, which is fantastic. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my colours. I use a fairly basic colour palette, and normally what I'll do is I will create everything that's CMY or colour flag based, and I'll do some rough colours. So I'll put the entire rig in red, taking out a highlight of course, put it in red, store my red, go a little bit across till I find a nice yellow that I'm happy with, and then I'll go further across. And another trick I've also got, if you're really terrible on colours, one trick I've got for generating colours, and I used to always get stuck up on this, was the RGB process of doing colours. So I'd start, I probably did need to clear out the entire thing when I did that. I'd start by bringing my red up, bringing out the green, storing that as a colour, then bringing up the yellow, bringing up the green, storing that as a colour, doing the red, bringing up the green, and then I've got a green already, so I'll continue with my process. I'll bring up the blue, which gives me my cyan, and then I'll take out the green, which gives me my blue, and then we bring in the red, and we get our magenta, and we get roughly the colours that I want. So, red, green, blue, and I'll do a couple more as well. I try to make sure that I've got a full colour palette. Obviously, the other way of doing this, and if you're really under a time frame, You are going to have to update colors if you do this, but let me just delete my colors by going delete preset 4.1 through. And we can see that this is preset pool number 4. I click please. This is what you can also do is you can go setup, go to auto create, go additional presets, select the fixtures that we know are CMY based, which is pretty much everything except for the Sharpies. And we can use, obviously, hued colors, which gives you pretty much 24 colors or so. Or we can go to the swatch book and go to MA colors and generate some general colors. So here we've already got we've essentially in 1 minute already got our color palette set up. White, yellow, orange, green. And most consoles will have this as well. Pink, magenta. And normally I'll add in on top of this a CTO, but once I've got my rough colors in, I'd obviously go through every group and, you know, account for the changes. You know, we've got auras and we've got vipers, so obviously their colors are going to be different. One's in LED and one's CMY flags. But we'll do the Sharpies next. We'll bring up our Sharpies. I'll tilt them roughly towards me. And we're working on, I'll show you the rig while we're here. We're working in sort of a circular room, so the truss actually wraps around. When you're doing like really easy things, because all I have to do to make a decent position is just tilt them out. But it is sort of cheating, and I would much prefer a flat rig with everything pointing in the same direction. But anyway, now we've seen the rig, I'll drop the color back. Yeah. And we'll do our colors. So colors on this, unfortunately, we're bound to a color wheel. So all I do is I select white, click on white, merge. We then go red, merge on top of that. Some people don't like merging on top of the same color palette. Some people with color wheel fixtures, especially when you don't have too many fixture types, will also do it in order below. So that instead of, you know, the way I'm doing it, where, believe it or not, they're actually kind of matching so far. It will change though. Yeah, there we go, aquamarine. Instead of going and cycling through all of them, they go in order. So I know that when I look here, I know I can go to red to orange without seeing a color wheel flick. And some people hate that. So we'll go to green. You may notice that I'm ignoring the half colors. I occasionally use half colors, but anytime I use half colors, I normally have lower ones with just the half colors, believe it or not. But I'm not a really big half color person. Some people love them though. Sea green. It's not really a sea green. We'll stick it on fern green. Lavender. Lavender. Pink. That's not a pink, that's more of an orange. Yellow, magenta, not the world's greatest magenta, cyan. I've already got a cyan, interesting. Wonder what I used for the cyan. Oh, that is not a cyan. These look very different in real life. And then we'll also have CTO, so that is not 260. That's not blue, that's ultraviolet. I'm also trying to slow down what I'm doing now. That's not how CTO 190 looks. But we'll stick this in as CTO, because I might come back to that as well. Have I got everything? Yeah, I hate color wheel scrolls. Not that this will do it. I hate color wheel scrolls. It's such a cheap effect. It's like a rainbow chase for color wheel fixtures. But now we've roughly got our colors in. If I select my Sharpies again, I can see that the only color I don't have there is a blue. So what I'll normally do is I'll find the closest color to that. So if I want my entire rig to go blue, it'll go blue. So I'm going to cheat a bit. I'm going to look for the closest thing to blue, which is not a 260. It has to be something. What do I normally use? I can't even remember what I normally use. It's gonna be cyan. I'm gonna probably use cyan. Yeah, cyan will do. At least it's a rough approximation. I like to have a full thing so I can pick any colour I want. So once I've done my colours, I'll check that there's nothing else that requires colours. There is nothing else that requires colours. I'll do positions, and I'll normally do them one group at a time using highlight mode. Stick them in blue, click highlight. With the full group selected, I'll normally get them roughly in a position. Now, because of the way these have been rigged, I can't use the align function. I also don't have a wing today, so this is going to be a bit more painful. So if I try to use my align function, which is my, well, that's a sign. I have a feeling they'll go in weird directions. Yeah, it's because of the selection order. I could fix that, but in my case what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab one fixture at a time and pan it. And repeat the process. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to do roughly all my groups and then I'll come back to you. Alright, so returning to where we were, I've created 4 positions. It's a bit of a non-specific show. Obviously I've got a round stage, so I would normally have a couple more positions. Downstage center, downstage open, downstage right, upstage, you know. If you've got a band, obviously you're going to have a couple of positions for those. I put every single fixture into every position that they can reach, even if I have no expectation of ever sticking them there. I'll still do it. Simply because just in case I need them, or you know, just in case certain fixtures are busy on something else, I've always got them available. So that's my positions. I'll go through with one group of fixtures so you can see exactly what I did. So we've got a very standard downstage center and 3 audience positions, and then a roof position. Quite simple. The next thing I'll do is I'll grab everything with a zoom in it. And I'll do my focus groups. So I'll grab focus. Of course, in the lovely world of MA3D, everything's narrow is narrow and everything's wide is wide. Obviously, it doesn't work like that in the real world. So I'll normally do at least 3 focus positions. I'll normally do tight, mid, which is the standard position for them, and wide. I don't know why it's 200%. I accidentally typed 200. It'll only be 100. And wide, tight, mid, wide. And that'll be all I'll do for focus, other than a couple of Gobo ones. So you might have noticed I didn't auto create my Gobos. There's a reason I do that. I normally just do a Gobo stack, but in this case I'm just going to do an auto create. I don't like auto created beam presets. Those are a pain in the ass. Probably don't need the washers. They won't actually do anything. And there we go. Now we've got just a mess of Gobos. Joy. So I can grab my profiles and we can go through Gobos. And then we can also obviously use the modifiers we've done. So we've got wide and stuff. So that's Gobos. And the final thing I'll do is I'll grab my fixtures one by one, and I'll create a couple of prism ones. So Priz, and I'll normally do 2. And open is one that I'll probably store a lot on top of. So the next thing we'll do is we'll go Priz with these. We'll test. Don't know if rotation will work. I know maybe no. If there was rotation, I'd also track some slow, fast. We'll do it anyway. So I normally have Priz as just non-moving, and then I'll do one that's, you know, slow, and it all depends on the show. Priz medium, and then fast. Obviously, I think I've probably gone past where it's counterclockwise. Fast. And I'll do that for all the other fixture types as well. So we'll go to our performances. I've also just realised that I've only done it for some of them. Effect wheel, prism, bring them out into the audience just so I can see them. No, can't see them. So just off that position. I went to find the off button on a command wing that I don't have. Well done. Will these rotate? No, they won't. That's okay. So I'll repeat the same process. Merge in Priz. Open. And then we'll do the same thing. So Priz. And then, you know, slow. Medium. And fast. And then you'd repeat the same process. You go to your Sharpies, which we'll do just because we're here anyway. Oh, so nice. Beams. Do these rotate? No, they don't. One day. So that's pretty much my palletting done. The next thing I'll do, because I come from a corporate world, is I'll make sure that I've got a stage wash, which in this case is fairly easy. We've got some front light, like so. We've also got some side light. So I normally store this as fader 1. Normally lectern for me is fader 1. But in this case it'll just be SW, stage wash. Some people set theirs as highest takes precedence, just so that they can't store stuff accidentally over the top of it. In terms of if they store anything with a 0 value, this will still take over. Priorities are an interesting one. They can be incredibly useful, but they can also be a nightmare for people that just blindly use them and just try to cover poor programming. So I'll do that. We'll also do side frezzers. Even though it's side frez, I'm going to call it BX. So there we've got our stage wash, back white, and sun strips. Yeah, sun strips are okay, but we'll come back to those. So, room look. So I'll stick our washers in wide. And stick them in a colour we can see. Probably, you know, it all depends on your company colours. I love blue. And I use obviously my matrix. We're going to go half in blue and half in... 11 is a very, very stereotypical colour. Let's go cyan. So it's quite a cold room look. We'll also take some of them... Nah, we'll stick them all out there. I also try not to use all my lights for a room look. So we'll grab some performances. Stick them out into the room. Focus them to tight. We're actually going to probably... I'm going to grab those performances. I don't like where they've ended up when they're out in audience. Well, some of them are right. It's just these LX1 ones. Just going to bring them back a bit. And update that preset. So we're going to now stick a gobo in them. Going to find a nice gobo, of course, in the real world. You've also got to deal with focus, which I'll do in a sec. So I'm going to grab... You don't want something that's too extreme. Just normally a breakup gobo or something. No, not limbo. These have got two gobo wheels, don't they? They do. A little bit of gobo shake. Gobo shake doesn't work. I've never used gobo shake on a show. Let's go for dots in space with prism. Oh, you can't even see it. Wow. In the real world, I assure you, you can see that. And in the real world, your prism doesn't look that bad. So then once I've got... We're going to take the prism out just because you can't see it. So once we've got that, I'll then normally create my first effect. And this will be a selective effect. So all I want for this one is pan, just sine. We'll slow it down to 5 BPM. And we'll also modify the size a bit. So I'll take the size down to 25. I mean, if we were smart, the other thing you can do, and it is handy sometimes, if you're using a selective effect and you want it to go between 2 points and you've got it as a selective effect, you can do this. You can go from audience OP to audience P. And it'll only go between those two positions. But then we also need to vastly slow that down still. So I'm using 3.12, so you might have noticed until I redid the effect, it didn't actually update. That's still way too fast. You want people to barely notice that the lights are moving. You just want to sort of create an ambience. It all depends. I mean, if you've got like a cover act or something, and then I'll normally save that as walk in, like so. Check that it works. And of course, because I've updated positions, whoa, that's not good. I think I just closed a view. So if it still works, positions aren't right. So all I need to do is need to grab my performances, stick them out, update new contents, and grab all my wash lights, repeat the process, update, new contents, because I didn't have them properly selected in the program. There you go, there's a rough room look. Obviously, you know, we've got some Sharpies. So we can do a similar thing with, you know, so we can grab our cyan or our... You're not going to see violet. You can go lavender. always label your effects like I didn't. And then what we can also do is you can also, I like copying effects I've created, and I create a lot of just, I create a lot of effects on the fly. Now obviously I can't use my low and high values, but what I can do is I can use roof. You don't always have to match your speed, but most of the time it looks good. So there we go. That's really simple. It's a bit wider. Still probably a bit fast now that you've got multiple fixtures. There we go. Can we chuck a prism in it? Yeah, that did nothing. Oh. See, once again, I'd chuck a prism in it. I'd also probably look at changing the color. There we go. And I'd update walk-in. And there you go. There's my walk-in look. So, and you can, you know, I always do a video state. We'll do that as well. Video states are really simple. And this is all just because it's mainly corporate that I do. So with a video state, I do the reverse of what you really should normally do with programming. I put everything I want to do everything in so that it does it. For example, so we'll track in my front light. We'll set it 25%, so we're leaving a glow. We'll set it to 45. 25% is normally fine, but we're doing a bit of this for the actual render. Just want a little bit of a glow. Grab our side Fresnels as well, set them to 45. Once again, that's way too high. And we'll store this as video. People say I go too fast, but it's hard to slow down programming and still do it. But I know I need to be slower. Normally what I'll do is I'll normally look at whatever's in the previous state. So we're coming out of walk-in. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look to pause positions. So I can select the fixtures I want. I'm going to select pretty much all the fixtures, just so I know they're not going to move on me. So if I track in stuff later, they're not going to move. And then pretty much, you know, I'll go, oh, well, I don't really, during video state, there's probably a screen above me. I don't really want my Sharpies. I want all my wash to return to downstage center. And I'm not going to track in intensity unless there is intensity. I'm just going to set it to blue. And for my profiles, we're just going to set them to 0. So I'm doing like really nasty programming. If we're looking at what I'm doing here, I'm offing fixtures like I'm doing the world's worst thing, but I'm building exactly what I want to see in my video state. Then when we go store, we go to video, we merge it. If I change this to a temp, when I fade this in, everything stops, sets that position, and then when I come out, everything starts again. Just if you're going in and out of videos, it's a really nice way of making sure that you get exactly what you want. And if I track something into my walk-in later, you know, if I decide to use my Sharpie washes, for some reason in the audience, in, you know, something hideous like a yellow, and I update walk-in, because I've tracked that information into my video state, they will fade out as well, but they won't change position. The only positions I'm tracking in are the washes to fade in. But because I stomp the effect, it all sort of comes in. But that's alright, as long as it's dimming at the same time. Technically, you could put it all in one cue stack, and then everything would fade nicely. There'd be moving blacks. But I like to separate, especially when I'm operating on the normal disc. I'm operating on, you know, a clarity or something like this, or, you know, something with a lot of faders. I like to be able to do things dynamically. I don't like going through a massive cue list. Most of the time, my walk-in cue list, if it's a really simple show, will include 2 cues. I'll have the walk-in, and then what I'll also have on top of the walk-in is pretty much what I'd call show state. So I'll store an empty queue essentially. Then we'll go to Q2 and then we update Q2. So we go edit Q2. And then pretty much I look for what I want to remove. Delete, 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 release Sharpies. Delete, delete, delete. Release those. Delete, delete, delete. Can't remember which ones I used. It should be really easy for me to work out. There we go. And I'll do the same thing with all my wash. I'll bring it so that it's now down stage center, and I'll stick it in blue. And then we'll update. Now I never, other than my video state, I never track in my stage wash because I always like to have that over the top. You never know when you want to have a little less or a little more. So now I'll stick a nice fade time in, 2 seconds. So now when people walk into the room, we have this, and that's an ugly fade. So we'll set a fade of 3, and what we'll also do is we'll go over, and this is an MA thing, we'll change our gobo delay and our color delay to 2, what did I set it as? 3. So what this will do, we'll also set a beam delay of 3. I stuck it on the wrong cue, didn't I? Yeah, I stuck it on the wrong cue. Should be on 1. Oh, sorry, on 2. Now, the question will be asked, Alex, why are you releasing fixtures? Why are you not just setting their intensity to 0 and just moving on? And there's a good reason for that. So there we go, how much nicer is that? And that reason is that if I want to use it somewhere else in the show or something, I can also use this presentation state as my opening state to Busk. I hate shifting 2 faders at the same time. So going from, you know, a walk-in to something else and having to manipulate 2 faders in a cross-fader style position because it looks clunky. I much prefer to synchronize things like this. So I like to have essentially this blue state or my presentation state so that I can layer on top of things if I need to. Other thing we're going to need to do, I want to set this fade to 3. Test again. It all depends on the show. I mean, that is a lot of movement. I'd probably stomp only certain parameters. Obviously the effect. Speaking of the effect, I have a feeling that might still be running. Yeah, they are still running. So while running Q2, we can also stomp the effect, or let's release the effect. Making sure that we're updating Q2. So that nothing moves. It all depends on the show. This is the way I do it, and obviously it depends on the type of show. Thank you for watching part 1 of the 30 minutes to show console trading special. In part 2, we'll cover a bit more to do with bands and starting to use some of the presets that we created in part 1. Thanks for watching.